I'm Rachel from Douentza Garden in Ireland, and this video is about my top 5 tropical looking or tropical vibe plants. Now, we all want that jungle feel in our garden. We want to feel small and minute in among gorgeous, enormous leaves that we can feel were around at the time of the dinosaurs. And this is a look that you can achieve in one of 3 ways in your garden. Now, today's video is a collab with Bill from Plants and Things in Canada, and Bill grows in zone 6B, whereas I grow in zone 9. So to get that tropical feel, what you can do is actually plant tropical plants in your garden in the summer, and then in autumn dig them up and store them frost-free in a greenhouse, in a basement, wherever you have, and then plant them out again the following year. Alternatively, and depending on your zone, and me in zone 9, I can get away with a lot of plants that look tropical. Plant them out in the garden and just leave them, forget about them, because they're hardy in my zone. It's cheating a bit, but it's so much easier than the first option. And then the third option is a mixture of both. So you can have some gorgeous, actual tropical plants that you plant out and bring in, and others that you just leave in situ. So, okay, let's get on with the collab video. You are welcome to my greenhouse and to this 5th collab on top 5 plants. And today I'm collabing with Bill from the channel Plants and Things in Canada. Now, you probably know Bill because Bill is one of the giants in horticultural YouTubing and one of the very first channels that I subscribed to when I started out. Bill grows a variety of plants, from tropical looking jungle plants, which we're talking about today, to ordinary garden plants, to orchids, to house plants, the whole range. And what I really love about Bill's videos is his cheery, can-do attitude. So if by chance you don't know him already, do check out his channel. I'm sure you'll want to subscribe. And before I tell you about my first favourite plant, which I know you're dying to hear, let me just preamble a bit by saying that all of the tropical plants I'm going to talk about today are ones that I grow outdoors in the garden. Now, there was a point in time when I used to grow subtropicals that weren't hardy in my climate. I used to plant them in the garden in spring and leave them there to flourish during the summer. And then when the weather got colder and the frost started to roll in, I would dig them out, pot them up and put them here in this greenhouse for the winter. A lot of work, and something that I don't do anymore the last few years for various personal reasons. So all that you hear from me today are plants that are hardy in my zone 9. So let's get on with hearing about those wonderful plants. And I have to tell you that my most beloved garden plant that really gives that tropical vibe in the garden is the Paulownia. Now, the Paulownia has a couple of different common names. It's known as the princess tree, it's known as the foxglove tree, and what I absolutely love about it is its large, soft, pale green leaves that just extend out to an enormous size in summer and just make the whole garden feel like you're somewhere far more gorgeous than the Irish rainy climate might suggest. Now, I'm sorry if you're in the States and I'm telling you about the Paulownia tree, because I do understand that it's an invasive plant there and not one that people can grow. But for me, in my climate, it does well. And the way that I get those giant tropical leaves on the Paulownia is that I coppice or pollard the plant in spring. I have a video about it somewhere, but what I do is cut the plant to the ground. It's an easy cut because the stems are hollow, something I can personally do. It's not like I have to have major machinery or manpower to do it. And the plant then looks very cut off and not doing much for about a month, but then it gets going and it is such a vigorous plant, sending up shoots with these enormous leaves that make an amazing backdrop to everything in the garden. So for all of these reasons, the Paulownia has got to be my favourite tropical look plant. It needs well-drained soil and full sun, I believe, although it may tolerate partial shade. And it is hardy in zones 6 to 11. So yeah, love it. Okay, that's the Paulownia, but now you're going to hear from Bill.
Wow, Rachel, I love that one. The Paulownia tomentosa is something that's been on my list for a while. I've been trying to grow them from seed, but no success, which is probably a good thing because I don't have the space. Those flowers are amazing. Oh, so beautiful. My number 2 plant is a whole group of plants. Let's just call them elephant ears. So they are the alocasia, the colocasia, and the xanthosoma. They give so much impact, tropical impact. The leaves are big and bold. Well, not all of them, but the ones that we grow in the gardens are big and bold, and they're just beautiful. As you'll see from the photos, I've got quite the collection, and if you watch my channel, you'll see a lot of them in my garden. I'll show you just a few of them in the photos, but they are another easy one to grow outside. As long as it's relatively humid, they're pretty tough plants. They like a bright, indirect location. Depending on where you are in the world, how strong your sun is, they might need a little bit more shade, but where I am, they can tolerate full sun for the most part. And they are stunning. They grow quickly, like I said. They can go dormant in the wintertime for ease of care. And the only thing that I find when growing them, the alocasias have a harder time going dormant. They tend to want to keep a couple of leaves going, and I suggest keeping those going as long as you can through the winter because they can be slow to break dormancy. So unless you're starting them earlier in the season before they go outside, you might not get them to grow when you want them to grow. The colocasia is a lovely one. They don't tend to get as tall. Some exceptions. The colocasia Thailand giant gets massive. But those ones tend to go dormant a little easier and come out of dormancy a little bit more on command, which is beautiful. I like to grow the colocasia fontanensis, I believe I'm saying that one right. I also like the esculentas. I have the Jack's Giant, and I've got a bunch others. I can't think of them offhand. And the xanthosoma, the lime zinger, is a stunner. It has such beautiful limey green leaves or chartreuse leaves, and sometimes you get a nice variegation. It's so beautiful. And I find that if you store those dormant, they actually reward you with more growth in the springtime, bigger and better growth. It's almost like over the winter time, if you try to keep them growing, unless you have enough light, if you have a sunroom or a greenhouse to grow them in, if you're just growing them in the house with limited light, it's almost like they're using up the energy within the corm or the tuber or whatever you want to call it, the rhizome, and it takes them a while to regenerate in the spring. So they start off much smaller, but if you store them completely dormant, they come bursting forth, and I'm finding that that's the same. Colocasia and xanthosomas are the same. They like to go dormant. They easily do that, and they easily come out of dormancy. So I do recommend that. So let's see what Rachel has next.
Wow, Bill, I totally agree about the elephant ears. So amazing, and your varieties are to die for. Now, as you can see, I do have one here. This is my last remaining alocasia, and unintentionally I've taken your advice. I've allowed it to grow through the winter. Very interesting, that point about not letting them go completely dormant, because then they wake up when they feel like it and not when you want them to. Also, I love that xanthosoma behind you, just there on your left. By a weird coincidence, I just recently bought a houseplant of that very same species, and yours is doing better than mine. I'll have to get some tips from you. Okay, I want to tell you now about my next favourite plant, and this one is Trachycarpus fortunei, or the Chusan palm. It's a palm tree, it's evergreen, and as somebody once recently pointed out to me, palms aren't technically trees, so I take that back, but excuse me if I refer to it as a tree, I'll forget again. It's a wonderful one in my garden because it's a palm tree, you know, so it looks like a palm tree, and it is hardy from zone 7. It does need a sheltered position because the wind will rip those leaves if you put it in an exposed position. It needs sun or part shade and well-drained soil. That's very important. And I have like 5 or 6 of them that have just done so well for me over the years. And the great thing about them is that they give that palm-like feel in summer. But in winter, when I'm doing potting videos outdoors at my stone table, I have this lovely backdrop, evergreen backdrop of palm trees, which might make you think I was in somewhere a lot warmer than I actually am. So for these reasons, I love the Chusan palm, and I'm happy to add it to my garden and to my top plants. Okay, over to you, Bill.
Oh, the Trachycarpus fortunei. That's a good one. That's a good one, Rachel. I also have that one. Didn't make my list because I store mine in the garage, and it gets banged around, so the leaves aren't perfect, but it's a beautiful plant. I'm starting to get more into palm trees, and we'll see. Maybe next year, if we do this list, maybe they'll make it on my list. So anyway, my number 4 is going to be ginger. So I don't know the scientific names for the ones that I do, but I only know the common names. I should know the scientific names. Some of them are harder to say. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is my shell ginger. The shell ginger is gorgeous. Oh my gosh, the variegated shell ginger. Let me correct myself. The leaves on that are stunning. Oh my goodness, I can't even describe them. They're just so beautiful. It adds a pop of color to dappled shade location. They're just wonderful. And then the other one is the turmeric. Just the store-bought turmeric rhizome. I've planted them in the garden, planted them in soil, and then transferred them out into the garden once they've started to grow. And they look beautiful. They've got this beautiful limey, or I guess lightly chartreuse leaf, very yellowy green, but it had such a impact with its as a filler. They do flower, but I have not had mine flower, but I don't even care. I love the shape of the leaf. I love the color of the leaf. I love the vibe that it gives, and it's just so easy to grow. Oh my gosh. So ginger, they require a part shade location. I found that if you grow them in full sun in my area, the leaves tend to curl and they get washed out. So if you give them a little bit of afternoon shade, they do so much better. So morning sun is the best for them. With the shell ginger, going back to that, that one's supposed to bloom on second year growth. So you try not to cut it down. But I'm in 6B, so I have to store it dormant. So it gets cut down. I tried to keep it growing through my first year, and it didn't flower the following year. So I'm just cutting it down. The leaves are beautiful enough on their own that I don't even care if it flowers. Those will be a bonus. So yeah, what do you have next, Rachel?
While you were talking there, I moved over here in front of my Brugmansia just to give everybody a change of scenery. Really interesting what you say there, Bill, about the gingers. And especially about the turmeric. I've tried growing that root from ones I've bought in the supermarket and just not had a lot of success with it. But I feel encouraged by what you say, and I think I'm going to try it again. Right. I want to tell you about my last tropical look, tropical vibe garden plant that I grow outdoors. And this is one in the aster family. So it's Telichia speciosa, which is from Central Europe. And it's a beautiful giant plant, a perennial that dies back in winter, and you need to cut back then in spring, and then it gets going again. But it has enormous soft leaves and a very sturdy stem. And it just, you know, you need a leafy backdrop for any kind of jungle feel in your garden. You do need a leafy backdrop, and this one certainly adds it. It might need a little bit of staking, and it needs a semi-shaded position, although I get away with it in full sun in my garden because, you know, Ireland, dim, lots of rain, and it needs a moist soil, but it does really well. And at the end of the season, it produces these lovely yellow single flowers that open up and are just loved by butterflies and bees. It's always a mass of insects at the end of the season, and that's great because actually it's kind of a paradox really. You are growing something because it gives a jungle feel, therefore you'd think it would attract more exotic insects, yet local bees and butterflies just love it. So for these reasons, Talekia is up there as one of my favourite tropical look garden plants. One that's easy from seed as well, and you can divide it just like any other perennials and move it about. And I really wouldn't be without this lovely, lovely plant. Oh yeah, hardiness. I think it's hardy to -20 centigrade, which I think is -4 Fahrenheit. So if you can give it those kind of winter temperatures, there's a bee, isn't that a great sign? Then I highly recommend Talekia for your jungle feel. Okay, and that kind of brings me to the end of this video, a collab with Bill from Plants and Things in Canada. If you don't know Bill's channel, then please do go and check him out. I'm going to link to his video there. So you'll need to go over and see the other half of this video where I appear in the same way that Bill appeared on mine. You get the idea now at this stage. And yeah, I'm sure you'll love it. Thank you as always for watching. It is a great time of year when it's cold and rainy to think about tropical growing and getting a wonderful jungle vibe in your garden. And I hope some of the plants we've shared with you today will give you tips on how to do that. Thanks as always for watching, and I will see you the same time next week where I will be doing a collab on top 5 plants. Next week is going to be top 5 perennials, and I'm collaborating with a different YouTuber. I'll see you there. Bye.